right, normally I don't allow phones in the pod, but I don't want to be just another dead sailor. Let's cast. Tragic day yesterday. It's got everybody's attention. And I immediately kind of thought about our pendulum. I wouldn't say immediately, but as I was contemplating on it last night, I thought about the pendulum we've talked about from day one, about just about everything. This kind of pendulum that we talk about kind of applies to a home, to a country, to programs, whether they be political or otherwise. And I thought of this, and I wanted to get your take on it. It's a Will Durant quote, in the 1930s. If the hunger for liberty destroys order, the hunger for order will destroy liberty. Now, this is kind of used as to explore the tension.
That balance between
that tension, that pendulum.
Rule and order and freedom.
Yeah, between individual liberty and the collective order. And that's kind of the way Maxwell used it some years ago. The enemy is combined. He emphasized that for a society to function well, citizens must have enough individual self-discipline to prevent the complete loss of order, which would invite the authoritarian hunger for control that destroys liberty. So I found that interesting, because here was a dude that I was aware of. I think everybody was aware.
We mentioned him one of the podcasts we talked about him just a little bit briefly, but
yeah, I mean, I was aware of him. Was I a turning point man? No. But I respected what he was doing. I kind of liked the fact that you and I don't really understand, and I don't think our age groups would as well understand this as Caden or Reed, the younger generation. But you could have said that. My dad could have said that. No. My grandpa could have said that about my dad. So since World War II, our universities have been a breeding ground for protest. And most of the protest has been liberal or left-leaning. That left-leaners in those days seem to be pretty moderate now, interestingly. So we could kind of see how that pendulum kind of got a little bit crooked or bent, or something, I don't know. Or our society, our culture just changed to a lot more inviting culture, a little bit more liberal one. I would probably propose that would be the case. But as it went on and on and on, when you and I joined, and we went to more college and more university than most, okay? We're not bragging. We went to a lot of university. Maybe maybe you could use that against us. But when I went at ASU, and when I went on to law school, which is a very liberal spot in general, when I went there, I wasn't affected by much protesting and much liberal concepts, so to speak, because I was kind of in there and out, kind of in to get the grade, to learn the material, and then on to the next class. The people I typically spent time with, I was married all the way throughout, so it was obviously, folks in that. Yeah, it was a very different little community that I had, like a personal one. I was like in this bubble. Then 9/11 happened. My first year of law school. And so then you got a little bit, then I started seeing some chatter, but it was all around me. It really wasn't in my face, if that makes sense. And the chatter all in all wasn't bad.
No, that was uniting, right?
Yeah.
That was probably the last time we were the most united as a country.
So then Charlie Kirk passes, and I mean, he's assassinated for everybody, and in Utah, of all places, Orem, Utah. I mean, who would have thought in a million years? Orem, Utah, but there you go. the cynic in me is alive and well, but that hunger to destroy liberty, and that push, that hard, violent push that we've been seeing for a long period of time, is an interesting thing. That fight against authoritarianism, that maybe unfounded fight against authoritarianism. I mean, I have folks in here all the time that are being arrested that get very. They tell me their story about how terrible the police officer was, and how this and that and the other, and how they were, a victim of maybe a racial issue or something like that. And then we see the body cams, and it's like our client was
Had some culpability there.
some significant culpability going on there. And when they're reaching into cars and they're jumping back into cars, and these police officers pull them back out, I mean, and then crap happens at that point. And then you wonder why. And then that's the belief out there, is the police officer was at fault, or the group of police officers were at fault for a tase, or for a physical reaction. Read one other thing, and then I'm going to be done with my reading, but I want to go back to the first one. A persistent preoccupation with freedom of speech to the neglect of other freedoms can diminish the shelter available for religion and other precious freedoms. The intertwining of all our freedoms is greater than we realize. It may be true that the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had absolute freedom of speech, but did they have anything worth saying? Interesting. So we talk about this pendulum, and we talk about all of this, and then somebody was literally assassinated yesterday, Charlie Kirk, somebody that I knew of, not well. I enjoyed what he was doing in the university specifically, and in high school specifically. I enjoyed that he was empowering those that were holding tight to some Christian values. They didn't feel so alone. The Christian values, the Judeo-Christian outlook, traditional beliefs and concepts. And he was very well received on college campuses, and very good at debating. I mean, he made a cameo on, what's that cartoon called, Reed? The South Park. Should have asked Paige on that one. And he had fun with that. He thought that was funny that they were spoofing him a little bit, and he actually put it on his program and kind of had fun with himself. He was very unoffensive, and he was very open to debate whatever topic someone wanted to bring him, and they would have a back and forth. He was not backing down from his viewpoint, and he was making a point, but he allowed the other person to speak as well, and as loud and as obnoxious as they wanted, which oftentimes they would get. But what that did was it created kind of a counterculture within universities. I mean, he's everywhere in these universities, and I believe in large part he's probably one of the most feared, or was. His program was probably one of the most feared grassroots movement by a political divide, by the other side. And I think to myself, we just did a podcast wherein you and I look at mental health from a very different posture. And we talked about it, and we talked about it. We talked about it for an hour and 15 minutes. We talked about it right here live for the world to see. And I understood your point, and I understood a lot of things that you had to say about it, and you understood where I was coming from as well. And we understood there's some problems with that within that subject matter. There's some problems there. But we were able to walk out of here and talk about how your moving is going, and how basketball is rolling, and not a problem whatsoever. And we disagreed very little at the end. We had narrowed the scope to where, I understood your point and you understood mine, and we both kind of understood that, hey, we probably, if we were in charge of some committee or some, study or any outlet that might help in this genre of mental health, we would probably be good at spearheading the debate there, and the talking points there would be fruitful and solution oriented, wherein we respect those that are rolling in the way that they can, depending on their situation and depending on their makeup and what they're dealing with. But it does require effort, and it does require a team, and it does require, a day in, day out effort, that you pointed out. And I found that to be, frankly, very good point. It's like, that's a good point. Maybe I forget that aspect of things when I see a good-sized majority of folks, or a lot of people anyway,
Dealing with different.
yeah, just taking every shortcut you can, and the shortcuts end up, as we both know, they don't end up being solutions at all. A short-term gain, long-term loss, and so, but we were able to talk through that. We're used to conflict.
Sure.
And I don't know why our politicians are used to conflict. So I have a son in North Dakota right now, and I'm his person. Oh, and he's a big Turning Point kid. I was shocked. My 14-year-old taking him to basketball last night. There's a little club team that you recommended. I'm taking him to hoops, and I'm talking to him about and he knew a lot about Charlie Kirk, my 14-year-old, which I thought was kind of a dunce.
Both my kids on their way to high school today, I had conversations with them. So yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know why my kids' friends want to follow me on social media, but because of that, I get to see their posts, and yeah, I asked the kids this morning, did you actually, are your friends actually aware of who Charlie Kirk is, or are they just regurgitating information?
Yeah, jumping on a bandwagon.
But
no, they know who he is.
They seem to think that, and my daughter said she'd seen lots of his reels and stuff like that. So yeah,
they seem to know who he is. I was shocked
because it's political, and we don't think our kids sometimes are.
Yeah,
smart
my man
enough
Clint is. Yeah, I would not have pegged this. I was like, what the heck? I mean, he knew. Oh, he's the guy that goes and talks about
issues on campus.
On college and I think high school. He said something like that, and he debates folks that are. He said something like this. He debates people that he disagrees with, and they have a debate. And I'm like, oh, that's more than I would have known at 14. Of course, I didn't have one of these.
Yeah.
At 14, thank goodness. I don't know how you get there. I love what Duran said, though. And so, if the hunger for liberty destroys order, the hunger for order will destroy liberty. And so, I want to kind of go, what are you thinking there? Because you kind of hit it on the head, and then I read what Maxwell said, but you were already there, shockingly.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, just like everything in a pendulum situation, your best clocks are the ones that are ticking right here, right? So you're in the middle, and that's, with a golf swing, it's the same way. You want to be balanced. You want to be, that's all physical talk, but it's metaphorical as well in our pendulums talk that there is a balance in everything. And without law and order, we're in chaos, right? And liberty is not, when you have no rules or morals, then society falls apart in the first place. And so it really doesn't matter your liberties if you have zero moral compass or order to it. Charlie Kirk's is is kind of a distinct issue, because I don't know if, my guess is the motivation on the shooter, and I'm completely speaking conjecturally, but it wasn't necessarily that they didn't like order. Like, they didn't shoot a police officer, right? They shot somebody who actually is very big proponent of free speech and liberty and whatever else. And so this almost felt like less an attack on order and more an attack on liberty, right? A little bit, to me, is how I felt like. And I don't know what the motivation is. This could be some grand conspiracy. I
we're probably going to hear a lot about these things.
and I'm slow to react.
Me too.
I want to be slow to react on in anger, because I think that, and I'm angry at the situation, right? I'm angry that somebody was shot. I'm angry that we think that violence is the best way to handle things. I'm angry that somebody was at the point where they made this decision. That's where my anger is. What I see a lot right now, and I was 90% on board with even the president's speech last night. I thought he did a great job. And then he had to throw in his little jab of already blaming the leftist or whatever. And it could be, and if it turns out to be that, you deal with that. I want to be careful about blaming anybody right now until we find out what the motivation is.
Let's put a pause on that, though. Let's put a pause on that. Right there. Let's put a pause on that, because I agree, and then I disagree. I kind of break off a little bit. When the president, I believe he was trying to convey something, which Trump's Trump.
Yeah.
But he's trying to convey something that I do agree with, and I think you and I have hit this as well, is the language is not interpreted. I was talking about my son in North Dakota, and I get all the woe is me, I get that kind of talk every Monday. I can set my clock to it. I'm not going to get, man, I'm doing good. I'm doing all right. Had an all right week. Nothing like that. I'm going to get kind of a little bit of, no one else gets it.
Just you.
Not when he talks to Reed, not when he talks to his mom, not when he talks to anybody else.
Safe spot.
So I'm the safe spot. Okay. Well, I'm like the mom with the inmate in jail. Yeah, we represent a lot of inmates in jail. They're not living it up. They're not having a good time. I'm not going to try to say that. But there are a bunch of dudes in a spot, and they're going to hang up after crying to mom, and only mom, because they don't have the same conversation with dad, and they don't have the same conversation with whomever else you're calling, but with mom or whomever is that person, that outlet. Usually it is mom. And they're, getting a little, the down in the mouth, and they're really struggling and so on and so forth. And they hang up and they go finish their game of dominoes and start laughing and so on. I'm not saying they're living the lap of luxury, but a little bit of a tale of two cities going on there, as far as how really rough they're having it. Now, again, I'm not celebrating jail or that it's easy. I'm not saying that it is, but I am saying that devastates their mom. And had they known, if they had any clue what they were doing, and maybe they do, maybe they don't, but if they have any clue that it's in this case with Jess calling me, it's okay. I know that I'm that person, and I know that's my spot. And but if it were to flip flop to his mom were that person, and I was not that person, she would be.
Should react differently.
How would she be
Mama
reacting?
Bear or whatever it is.
Well, frankly, probably just as annoying as he would be.
Okay, that's probably frankly true. Yeah. So, I mean, she would take it very personal and it would wrap her up and it bother her for days on end. And Reed would hear all about it, and I would hear all about it, and a lot of people would hear all about it. I'm just complaining to you at the whole, universe of our 1,472 likers and subscribers and our 42 faithful, and we're trying to build on that. But the reality here is that Trump is trying to say, slow down the rhetoric of the Nazis,
and
slow down
exactly.
And I want him to say it that way.
I do, and that's where I meant, and maybe I didn't finish my thought. Is that I appreciated the message, and that's where I want the focus to be more than anything else. Is that I think this is where leadership on both sides puts a stop to the hateful rhetoric. Disagreeing is one thing. You can disagree, like you said. You and I have disagreed on different things. I disagree with my wife, and I love her to pieces. But my wife made an interesting comment this morning, and she said, and I thought, wow, that's not that my wife's not intelligent. She's super smart, but it came across even more, impactful to me this morning, because this is something that she's a big follower of Charlie Kirk's, and she was the first one to call me at my office when this happened, and this was kind of a tough day for her. And I was taking her at 4 a.m. to go get surgery, and we were kind of discussing it again. And she said, we've created a climate where we've put people and they feel like trapped animals. and they react in certain ways because they feel trapped. And I went, and sometimes, and I was kind of thinking about that as she was talking about that analogy of how, you know, a trapped animal reacts, whether it be physically or mentally, it's lashing out. And so we've created this culture where we've caged people in because, and it could be, and I mean that in a couple different ways. Either you're super active like Charlie Kirk is, and you're caged into, you've got to fight your way out. He does it verbally, which in order to defend his beliefs. Or on her point was, if you have a belief system, you can't express it anymore. And she called her brother to talk about Charlie Kirk, and he's a big fan. And he was like, I don't feel like I can have an opinion anymore. Like if I have an opinion, I'm putting myself into danger. And that's not the country we built either. And so she's like, we've created this on both sides. Again, that pendulum's so extreme that now we've got people hiding away from the political spectrum. My wife's afraid to post something on social media because even though she knows the majority of her friends are big, you know, perhaps conservative,
along the same line.
yeah, maybe along the same line of thinking, she has some that maybe aren't.
Right.
And the vitriol and hate that has come from certain posts in the past, she just shies away from it. And that's a sad situation that we're in that caged animal situation where some people are staying caged, right?
What do we do
Instead of
about
fighting
that?
ourselves out of the
What
cage.
do we do about that?
Yeah, I want, and you sometimes are more optimistic than I am that the country can get better, and I want it to be. Like literally, I have prayers that it can. This morning,
Yeah.
you know, we have certain maybe religious, you know, leanings that tell us that may or may not get better. I don't know, but we sure hope. And we always have free agency, and we always have free choice, and that's the liberty that we've talked about. And you hope that it's not the end of something more dramatic, right? And so I don't know the answer to that other than we have to treat people like neighbors, friends. We have to be the peacemakers that you know, even Charlie Kirk, I heard talking about this certain topic of, you know, whether you react in violence or with your fists. And some guy challenged him to a fight. I was watching a clip and he's like, no, I'm not going to fight you. We can debate all we want, but I'm ultimately here to honor God and Jesus Christ, and they were peacemakers. And, you know, sometimes, you know, and I have issues with some of the approaches that he has on the religious side of things, and maybe they're a little bit aggressive but all of that, it's, again, I look at it objectively and just say, okay, this was somebody who believed in something and went out and wanted to have a conversation with it and now got shot because of it. And again, when my wife said, you know, you've created this culture of caged animals and everybody's lashing out, I think she's right. Like, even on this podcast, I think I'm diplomatic. You call me diplomatic, but some of that diplomacy is just, I've got people that watch this and clients that watch this that I want to be careful with making sure that things are said in a certain way nowadays. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're in a culture where, and it's unfortunate, where we can just
let it fly. Yeah.
And express an opinion without consequences. That sucks some ways.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But I think the heart needs to come back into it, I guess, is the best way that I can think to phrase that, is that, and I heard somebody say this, and I thought this is a great point. This can be a little bit blamed on, not even a little bit, a lot blamed on social media. And I don't mean that social media is an inherently evil thing, but what social media created was a culture of people who could hide behind a screen and say whatever they want and not be held responsible for it. And then that started to bleed into others that held that opinion, and it started to become a culture where you could you become radicalized. Right. And you may not have even felt that fully, but because you could do it behind a closed door, or because you watch somebody else get attention for it, then all of a sudden, you know, just like anything where you radicalize somebody, it's just exposure, and these algorithms just start exposing, even when it's not even a majority thought. When your TikTok algorithm is telling you this is what you like, you start to believe it, and you start to do things that are not what you inherently morally knew growing up. And so social media has created this culture of people now who are taking it to the street. And I'll bet you I don't know, but we know with other shooters and whatever else that, like, I heard somebody on they were doing a roundtable about this yesterday, and one of the guys was like, this is why this on the order thought we need to just separate certain people from society. We need to gel them. We need to put them away. They're just inherently bad people, and we need to get them away. And the counterpoint was, none of these shooters had any criminal history in the last
or ever
5 or 6 events.
Right.
Nor did they have no. You could have said they had mental history, but they were not hospitalized for mental illness. They were not on medication. And so that's such a tough statement to say that there's
I don't know about the medication part, but you're right about the you're right
meaning
about all in
there's
all.
just
The
nothing,
global statement is right.
The order part of it.
Yeah,
the,
they've
the
never been institutionalized.
part
They've
of it,
never
where we
been-
control
Right.
who we let out in society. There was no history of that.
Right.
And so how do we do that? How do we live in a United States where then we're starting to get in the police state? And that's the balance of all. If there was an argument on the left side, we're turning into a major police state, and the way ICE is handling things. I've talked about the immigration stuff. The balance is on everything, but the one thing that it feels like is not happening, whether you're on one side or the other, is that you have to conform to what I believe in, or you're wrong and I hate you. That's the part that we've got to get past.
I agree. And so
but you asked the question of how do you do that? I don't know. You got a solution for me?
I think there's only one. And I think we both know it. And I think we both just got away from, I think our country did. And to answer your wife's brilliant observation, as far as caged, weren't the founding fathers that way? And wasn't this just like that? The fear factor of, and then plus the money coming from the English to certain few over here, and the courage that they had to do what they did. I don't think that's respected enough. I don't think that it's contemplated enough. I don't think that it's thought through enough. The courage that our boys had in World War II, signing up at 16, 17 years old, the courage to go and most likely die for our country because it's the homeland. The courage that we had in 1860 to do a civil war and to rebuild each other thereafter, the courage that took, how ugly that war was.
And in all those situations, you have a group of people who are coming out, showing their faces and say, I oppose what you're doing. And sometimes it was violently, right? Revolutionary War was violent.
Yep.
Civil War was violent.
Yeah.
There was lots of people killed for those causes. And everybody's going to agree, hiding on a roof and shooting somebody
From afar,
whether you were supported or not, that's chicken. That's not courage.
Agree.
You've never showed your face. You didn't go and debate him and give your opinion. You shot him from afar and ran. And none of those events that you've talked about were that.
Right.
Even in the Revolutionary War, we stood up and said, no more of this.
But what I'm trying to say is there was plenty of those types of things that happened that were not courageous. Like an assassination isn't courage. But there were hangings, and there were threatenings and consequences of death and everything beneath it to our founding fathers, or to those that fought against brother, cousin against cousin. During the Civil War time, or those that were willing to give it all up, the ultimate sacrifice. Even immigrants, specifically immigrants in this country, going and fighting in a war that united these United States very much so. Again, like further gelled it.
That's our problem, right? Is that we come together when we're fighting against a common enemy outside of our walls. But right now, we've created our own enemy, right? And that's where I have a problem with, not specifically this statement of the president, but presidents of the past, presidents of the current, or right now, our political climate right now is that we're vilifying the other side instead of just disagreeing.
We're calling names. We're doing this. It's hate. And so it's
what
hate.
it is.
And so you and I are kind of used to this. I want to say adversary. I want to say fight, verbally, a debate.
And we know and I've had this conversation with my wife, and I don't know if you feel the same. I don't know what her personality is. I know Paige, but I don't know. I've never been inside of your fights. But, my wife gets frustrated and says, okay, you can fight without emotion because that's your job and that's what you learn how to do.
Maybe
I can't do that. And so I know that there's emotion to feelings. I know there's emotions to political views. I don't feel them as strongly in the sense of I don't want to cry, I don't want to punch. I want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to express. I want to be able to have courage and stand up for what I believe in as well. But I don't want to come to your house and convince you and drag you out of your house to do it. I don't feel that kind of emotion. My wife during fights doesn't want to fight with me because there's emotion attached to it. So I don't want to be.
Paige calls them mental gymnastics. Yeah, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I just want
arguing my point, right?
Right. I just want
it's just facts.
Let's get everything out of here.
Yeah. No, and I know that's you and I are in a unique, and we got to be careful in the sense that we have the unique capability of doing that. Even my kids, they're like, I don't want to argue with you. It's like.
Yeah. The wall,
zero sensitivity there, and it's just it's not fun.
Yeah,
and so I get that.
My point with all this was though is since we are used to this, and so we have a natural adversary within our job. We have a natural the government on your end, the government on my end, and so we're you're fighting for what you believe should be the proper outcome in an immigration matter. And you've done all the study, you've done all the workup, and you understand that there's discretion here, and there's an adversarial, component to that, and at times that works together, and it's a beautiful thing, and we get to see that and appreciate it. And other times, you get somebody that's a little bit difficult, or takes their position.
Super aggressively.
Aggressive and kind of wields power that they don't really have to wield, and they just make things very challenging. And so when you get through that and you come out the other side, it was so much more wearing on the vehicle
physically,
right? It was wearing, and so but ultimately you got your guy. Ultimately, you got your result you want, and sometimes you didn't. And so we come in that world. Here we have, and I think this is what Trump was alluding to last night, and I think it could have been better put for sure. 90% of what he said was great. And I
actually want to give him compliments because it's one of the it was pretty. And I'm nitpicking now. It wasn't that bad. All I want to be able to do is I want somebody to stand up like at Bush, like after 9/11, and just be like, let's stop, stop this. Yeah. And I don't want specifics of you're doing this and we're not culpable of the same things. No. I just want both of us like stop.
Yeah. And I do believe that is ultimately his message. I just think that it came out a little bit.
He just has a hard time always.
I heard it a little bit the same way you did. So
it's
I'm not trying to just rush over.
But it's not the worst statement. I don't want to nitpick.
It was very milquetoast compared to what we've heard before. But we have never had this political divide, and the political divide Trump came into in 2016. He came into this
20 years of it, really.
And we've had a lot of back and forth. But Trump came in, and I believe with him came a potential of courage on both sides of the aisle, and a potential of the right amount of order and the right amount of liberty. That's always going to be the balance. The pendulum is order. You don't have liberty without order, and you don't have order without liberty. And so it's just kind of one of those things. You're totalitarian if you have too much order, and then also if you have too much liberty, the car falls apart in the track. I mean, it only can do what the car can do. And so I've been watching these reels. They keep popping up because I liked Ford versus Ferrari reel. I thought, oh yeah, that was a great movie. I remember that one. It was like one of the last movies I've seen. And I get to watch these things over and over and over again. I don't know, it makes me a freak or something, but I just like this particular thing. But I like the way that they're putting this car together to beat their enemy, Ferrari, that they respected, because Ford was trying to buy Ferrari. I mean, they wanted to win. They wanted to beat the best. And so they're trying to build the best with Carroll Shelby. And the way that they're putting this car together to where it has to hold together, has to break, has to accelerate, has to stay, at a certain RPM so you save the motor and this, that, and the other because it's a long, drawn-out race. All of these things have to be considered because if you don't finish the race, if your car blows up, if your brakes fail,
It doesn't matter how fast you were going.
doesn't matter how fast you were going at any given time. You didn't finish the race. So it's an interesting, that is, in a nutshell, what we're talking about. There's an order, and then there's a liberty. You have to trust that driver to drive that car in a way that brings it out the most out of her, but yet keeps it together. And so that's what we're constantly trying to achieve together, and that's what we expect out of our politicians. It does seem like the left is increasingly louder and more foul and more, I wouldn't say name calling. I'd say more uncouth. I mean, it's just like, gosh, where did this language go? Why are we using SF and all sorts of crap on the floor of the House? I mean, you don't see Mike Johnson doing that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay,
more
you see
decorum.
Chip Roy that blows a gasket but doesn't cuss like a trucker at all. You see Ted Cruz, which you and I can debate on whom we love the most and not. But you don't see Rand Paul going off either. And I'm not sure which side he's on any given day, which I almost like that quite a bit. You don't see that, but you have Trump that does say, this and that, and he points fingers at folks. And the reality is he was shot at as well, probably in large part for the same reason Charlie Kirk was assassinated yesterday, is these online social media, this buildup of this trapped animal that they're lashing out, and eventually the wrong person gets the wrong idea and figures this is the right patriotic move or the right move in their cluttered world, and now we have a bullet shot at somebody.
No, and it's...
We have somebody stabbed yesterday. We have, my gosh, we've got a lot of violence going on.
We do. And solution-wise is obviously, as men, we talked about this in a podcast about, we just want to solve problems, right? That's our male instinct sometimes,
Right.
is to problem solve, and that's sometimes we get ahead of ourselves when we do that. But ultimately, that's my thought is, okay, we've got a problem now. I don't want this problem to continue to be swept under the rug. What are we going to do? And you pose that question of what do we do? And I want to talk about it. I want to think out loud of what those solutions are. And I ultimately come to the conclusion, as always, is that we have to put humanity back into it. And that goes for both sides. You're right. I think the left, sometimes the language that's done and the liberal way that they talk is the decorum's out of that, and it's already puts people on the defensive when you're attacking somebody so vilely. I think that the right's not immune from that, from some of the, whether theirs is by words or actions.
Sure.
We've got we've talked about till we're blue in the face some of the actions that are going on with this administration that cause. But even myself, and I can only relate this to a personal issue, is that look. I'm very careful. I don't post any political stuff for the most part because even like we talked about, I lean on the conservative side, but even my conservative friends, if I express a somewhat moderate opinion, I'll get attacked by my conservative base as well, my own people in a sense. Yeah. And if I obviously go on the conservative side, I'm going to get vehemently attacked by any liberal friends that I have. And I just don't understand why it's so hateful. And part of it is, again, that and maybe because it's on social media, if I was sitting down at the table with that same friend, we'd probably be having a conversation like you and I, because he can see my eyes and he can see my tone and he can see there. You get no context from a social media post. You get no tone.
Yeah. How often? Okay, this is a perfect example. How often do you? Getting personal here, but you did bring up your wife. So how often do you get into a little bit of hot water because of something you text that wasn't meant anywhere near the way it was received?
Yeah. So not as often you think, because I'm very careful with that. I'm careful with everything I do nowadays. And in some ways it's sad that I have to, that I have to double think everything that I do.
Maybe
and
I should
say.
start doing your program a little more.
Well, and part of it's maybe because I'm this robot, and that's what everybody accuses, right? Is that the emotion, but it's not that I
You
don't
are
have
not a
emotion.
robot.
It's just inside, and I have enough emotion to know to be careful, and so I'm just very diplomatic with the way I do things. It's just the way I am.
You are not a robot.
chameleon.
I got a call from you one morning, and you were hot
Yeah,
because we
no.
dropped the ball, and I was. So you supposed, and I did too. I'm like, oh crap, I might have, and so I started looking into it. I loved that day. I loved that day. I'm like,
But I'll bet
but
that if you were to
was
ask somebody
very
what my hot is and somebody else's hot is probably.
oh
pretty
yeah, no,
different.
I was. You
But-
were
but-
not offensive whatsoever, but
No.
you were hot, and you could tell you're
Sure,
passionate
and it's
about
not.
that
And
moment.
I'm not a robot. Sometimes I get accused of that by my wife and kids. But it's not. It's not that I don't feel it. It's just I just don't express it as maybe I've got people in my family, including my wife, who are very very emotional, and it's on the sleeve, and
Yeah.
it's and that's
and that might
and I've
be
learned
something.
to be.
Yeah,
I can't fight fire with fire.
no.
And so I have to take a different approach, and I've learned that over 20 years. And maybe would have been, look, I was captain of my debate team. That sounds super nerdy, and so I've been doing this my whole life.
You're a master debater.
Yeah, exactly. And so all of this has been entrained in me. My mom said I was going to be a lawyer when I was 2 years old. I was arguing, rules and whatever in the house, and wanted to always know the facts and the logic behind it. So this doesn't bother me. And what Charlie Kirk didn't bother me. I never felt, or if it's on the liberal side, I was listening to Bill Maher this morning and Charlie Kirk together, and some of the things Bill Maher said I was completely vehemently against, and I don't really like that guy, but I have zero desire to kill the guy.
No
or
angst.
no angst.
It's
or
like, yeah,
we live
okay,
his
he's a
life
little
and just
bit-
don't
yeah.
agree with
Right.
some of the
Dis-
things
we
he's
disagree.
saying. And that's where I just don't know, because of where we're at technologically, and even like on our own YouTube page, like we know this, we're not immune from. Somebody called our video last week lame. I don't know what. I was just reading it this morning. Okay,
Oh.
I don't know what we did that was lame, but I
don't
really don't
either.
care.
I-
I mean,
right.
but the fact that
I've
somebody,
been called Huey Lewis. You've been
but if you
called
and I
Andrew
were sitting
Tate.
here and this same guy was here, do you think he'd stand up and say this is lame and walk out? Probably not.
No,
I mean,
probably not.
Probably not.
No, probably not.
And
Or we'd bring him in too, and
yeah,
we'd just
and
talk
we talk to him and say, okay, tell
yeah.
us why, and
Yeah.
and whatever it
Yeah.
is, and we're in a culture now that wants to cancel, that wants to. I don't know where we've gotten to this point where we can't talk about issues without being offended or wanting to write that person out of their lives if you don't.
Here's where I
agree with
think we do. Here's what I think we do, and here's where I think we're at. Here's what I think. Might be Pollyanna. I don't know. Pritzker, whatever that mayor guy's name is over there in Chicago. Why would Newsom? Why is it so bloody hard for either one of these people, any one of these three men, to say, we've lost a little control over here,
Yeah, the accountability part.
and we could use that help for a little bit of time?
That's another job. I think that relates, but I think that's
Okay,
the problem is
we
nobody can
could,
take
but
accountability. for
instead
anything.
they take a stand at the expense of the people that they represent or purport to
Right.
represent, and they take a stand because they can't do it. Do you realize the best thing Newsom could do is that? And we might have him as president if he did it. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I know that. That when I said it out loud, you went, "Oh snap! That might
because we know
actually
how
do
many
it."
civilizations have fallen, and that's pride. That's what
Right,
that is. That's
right.
it's pride, and we know how many civilizations have not lasted because their pride outlasted. It's
On the
their
flip
morals and their
side,
compass.
on the flip side, you have an administration, a very strong leader in Trump, and so on and so forth, and very, getting stronger party in the Republican Party at this point, which is interesting to watch. And you have, and there's probably more disagreements that are healthy within that party right now. And let me stress that are healthy. I'm interested to watch this from afar. Going, they're debating each other the way this should be going back and forth from the aisle,
Sure,
from the Democrat to the Republican. They're debating each other that way. That's healthy.
sure, yeah.
And
no.
the American people might want to look at that and say, hey,
Last
I
thing
kind of
want is
want
a
that.
conformist society.
Because,
of
right.
just-
Same with the justices, the Supreme Court justices. When you're, a right-leaning or a conservative judge, you don't know what you're going to get. out of that hearing. You don't know what you're going to get.
Which was a funny comment from President Trump. He used the word, we got to stop attacking our judges last night. And I was like, come on, bro. You're one of the worst at that. No,
Well,
at least it's words. It's not
I
physically
kind of
attacking.
understand it, though. But he is words, and I understand. But
that was just.
But the attacking, because we've got, I think, a judge killed or shot.
That's what he meant. But I was like,
but yeah,
I was thinking
you get lost a little bit in that. I understand that, though, what you're saying, because this dude's been through. I mean, he's been sued indicted, sued.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been systemized pretty good, and so his
view on
for
judges
him being
judicial.
as good as he is remarkable.
Yeah.
For him being as good as he is, because look at what all he went through, and yet he's still kind of, okay, we don't cure it all the time, and it's not like this bloodbath of judicial activism, which, man, you got to kind of respect that if you take a step back. I mean, the dude's been shot at, dude's been sued, the dude's been slandered, the dude's been everything you could do to somebody, and somehow survived it. Somehow just kind of rose above.
We've talked about this.
Well, that's remarkable if you think about that.
I mean, so hate's not new, right? And I think I was talking again, maybe religious, maybe people don't want to hear this, but I was part of this conversation.
Maybe someone will say lame.
But yeah, part of this conversation with my wife was like, I said, and whether you believe in this or not, I said, what an interesting thing that Satan has done right here with our culture, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that you are afraid to stand up for what you believe in because you think you're going to be attacked by both your own people and the people against you.
Yeah.
And that's stripping freedom more than anything else. Right? And so
was that your response?
People champion this freedom of speech.
Was that your response to her statement this morning?
Well, that was just kind of that all kind of led into the conversation we were having of just what a cunning way to create a culture that's going to fall.
Yeah.
And a society that can't survive if it continues in this way.
Right.
Because you're just going to have more and more people that out of hate-filled lashing out of that caged animal situation are going to lash out. And it's if I was to create a counter culture or a counter society to bring down a culture, that's a great way to do it.
That's scary because you're not wrong.
Yeah.
I can't disagree with that. It's an absolute truth. And so here we are, and we have Charlie Kirk that was vehemently against, and did not hide it. He was pro-life, pro-life,
Pro-God.
But then he said, straight, all out there. And then he said, however, I have to be practical. Those are my beliefs, but I have to be practical. And I'm from the state of Arizona. And the state of Arizona is not a pro-life state, sadly. He said, my state is not a pro-life state. Here we are. The Arizona law firm is pro-life. However, who cares?
Yeah. He even, in this Bill Maher conversation, they were talking about marijuana. And he's like, look, I vehemently oppose the legalization of marijuana. However, Bill Maher really likes marijuana. And he's like, look, you do you. I'm not going to force you to do anything, but I'm going to stand up for what I believe, and I'm going to tell you why I believe it. Just when he's talked about the gender identity things. Look, I don't believe this is a thing, but you're ultimately going to make your decision, and I'm not going to violently force you to do anything, or I'm going to debate you, and I'm going to tell you what I think is right and what morally.
He created a safe spot for people that believed in his way, and there's a lot more of them than the other side thought, because Trump won the youth vote, the young vote. And that's turning point. That's turning point. That's a big, big push. So that's scary to some piece that they've always owned. They've always kind of owned that part, and now they don't. And this turning point thing is getting, okay, all right, so there's that. But the way that he put that, I'm pro-life, but I have to be practical. I'm in Arizona, and most of the folks in Arizona, or many of the folks in Arizona, are pro-choice. And so as a legislative matter, I would have to check, okay, this is my belief, but if that's going to be other people's beliefs, which is their right, then a solution needs to be found. to where it's not inhumane and to where it's not this. And the way he spoke about it was, look, like you just said with the Bill Maher, the same exact thing with the marijuana. It was the same thing. And to me, that's like, okay, that's all right. That's hard to argue with.
And we can still argue that though there's
Romney
certain
got hammered for the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and we can argue that there's certain moral things. Like there are a lot of people that, whether it have been, our abortion decision that the Supreme Court had for 50 years, that morally we could have felt like that was the wrong decision, right? Mm-hmm. And that's okay. We can still, even when laws change or the majority feels a certain way that we don't feel as a minority, I mean, that you can feel that moral obligation to stand up for what you believe in, even when the majority doesn't. What the unfortunate part is how we do that and how we react to that, and we have to somewhat conform to that order if that's what the order decides, and then politically protest all you want, come out about it, and eventually that decision
might
had
change.
enough support to change.
Yeah, it might.
But it was done in the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't done violently and whatever else. And those that are maybe pro-choice now, the same process, that they have the same rights to do, and I respect those rights, and that's where we've gotten lost a little bit.
So I'd say to our fellow people that I would say my opinion would be to anyone that would listen, and after hearing really that amazing dialogue between you and your wife, I'd say courage. I'd say we're going to have courage. We're going to have to stand up for what we believe for. It doesn't mean we get violent about it, but we have to be courageous. Wouldn't we want our kids to be courageous, not follow the crowd, not do this, not do that? Isn't that how we raise our kids, or want to? At least I'd like to think that. Mm-hmm. But I really know how exciting it is to wear baggy pants again. That's back, Westover. That's back.
Oh, yeah,
showing the boxer shorts and the halfway down your can. And my 14-year-old, in as much as he did know Charlie Kirk, now I'll throw him under the bus, is a baggy, or whatever they call him, a sagger. And I thought that was funny because that was back in my days. And so he sags, and it's like, oh, geez. That's old school, but don't tell them that. But maybe I will tell them that so it'll go away quick. At the end of the day, it's one of those things where we're going to have to be courageous. We're going to have to take a stand, and we're going to have to reach out and make healthy debate and make and not hate, not spread the hate, not take that. We do that for a living, and we do have challenging people that we're up against, and sometimes even with our own clients and things of that nature. We have challenges on all fronts, and we're always dealing with conflict. Okay, and so that can jade. We've seen, you and I both have seen many attorneys get, fall off the truck, get jaded.
It doesn't wear on us like it does others.
Really doesn't. Maybe it's because I enjoy the challenge.
Sure, me too.
Maybe it's because I enjoy the 4-deep chess. I enjoy the challenge. Really is the best way to put it, and I enjoy helping somebody get through that, even if they're going to fight me during the help. And I kind of have a pretty high tolerance for that too. But that said, it's okay. We might be used to that, but this is our home, and this country was is and was an experiment, and that race car we call America has limitations to RPMs, has limitations as to airflow, has brake limitations, has motor limitations, has speed limitations, and we want to win the race. Okay, we want to win the race. We want to continue to win the race. We want to be successful. But we have to keep these things within order.
Yeah, because there's courage in doing it the right way, right?
Yeah.
If Shelby cheats,
right,
and where's the courage in that? And that's what these people are doing.
Right.
It's cheating the process that we've gotten. And I would second your courage and say that it also takes courage to be a peacemaker.
Yeah.
And that means even from let's talk it on the political side of things. Like, it takes courage to stand up and say, I'm going to listen to this side and let's come to the table. Because when those politicians that do that, that don't vehemently speak out against the other side and say they're the worst and they're the most evil thing in the world, they get vilified by that. Then again, their enemy becomes their own party, their own people.
Yeah.
And so it takes courage to stand up for what you believe in, and it takes courage to stand up to listen to the other side and come to the table and be a peacemaker. I think both of those things have courage in them. And it's not just the courage of, this is my belief, hear me, hear me, hear me.
Yeah.
There's courage in all of that.
So it would take courage for Pritzker, whatever that Marshall is, the governor over there. I don't know,
Whoever it is.
something. So you got Pritzker, he's the governor, and you got we got Newsom over here. We got a few notable governors. It would take courage for them to go, we could use some help.
Yeah.
And we're going to work in concert with them. Guess what? Pritzker has a future in politics still because he showed courage. And in as much as I don't care for Pritzker because of, for obvious reasons, or Newsom for obvious reasons, it's like, dadgum. I mean, he is doing something. Maybe it's for the maybe it's in the final 2 minutes of his governorship.
For me, anytime somebody humbles themselves, like I have more respect for anybody. Like there was a time where I don't remember what conversation we were having, but my wife was bringing up some neighbor, and it was like, hey, I heard from this neighbor that this person's doing this, even though he's doing this, and something, whatever it was. And I was, whatever. And the neighbor was mad because they were in a position of authority and they were being a hypocrite because they're doing things in their personal life. But what they were actually doing was actually noble. And I was like, why does it matter? Like, to me, why does it matter if he's got his struggles, but he's courageous enough to try and continue to do the morally right thing, or in this case, providing a service to a people? Like, I understand where your point is, but there's courage in knowing that there's neighbors that know that you have some challenge in your personal life, but you're going to still, and he wasn't going up and saying, be me. Right. He was just trying to still do what duty he was asked to do. And I thought, and I've always just kind of taken the point, look, there's courage in all of that.
Yeah.
And there's going to be courage in standing up to, to the bullies. That was another thing my wife brought up. She's like, everybody's a bully nowadays. Like, we bully people into positions and bully people into thoughts. And then everybody's a victim. And just like the caged animal, when you're a victim, you fight, you defend.
Yeah.
And we're
maybe you feel the same way.
And we've always talked about just sitting down. Like we in podcasts, if we sit down, to our point, and we're face to face,
right,
it's a different climate for the most part.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's our politicians. Do they not get together in meetings anymore? Do they not Hamilton, the room where it happened? Are they not doing that anymore?
I don't feel
like
they
fighting over social media
I don't feel
instead
like they
of getting
do.
together and facing each other?
I think that they're more text fighting. Like
I
we
believe
talked
so
about.
too.
I think that's what they're doing. It looks that way from here.
We've taken the person out of it
And
because
so,
we're hiding behind a screen.
I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like, okay, I've got a quiver. I've lived, I'm on the fifth floor now, so I'm 50, and I've got a few things that I've come across in my days, and I've got the truths and things that I've gathered here and there along the journey, and it's by no means full. By no means is it, overflowing, but I'll put that in a tube. I call it a tube of toothpaste with Paige. I said, just use it if you want. Use it when necessary. It's like crack when in an emergency type thing. I feel like that's the courage that I'm talking about. Is I believe in certain truths, and I believe that they're self-evident, and I believe that they're commonsensical, and I believe that they're probably the right way. Could we maybe stay on a little bit more of this side of the road or a little bit more of that side of the road? I don't know. We could kind of discuss that, all in all.
And say it all you want.
Right.
You don't hate the other side. That's the only
Right.
thing that I kind of encourage, that if there's comments, and that goes for the other side. Like when they're talking about your position, be kind about it. Listen to it. Or even if you don't even want to listen to it,
Right.
the person's still a person, and we've taken we've talked about this a million times. We've taken the humanity, our identity as a country has disappeared.
Yeah.
And so because we don't know who we are inherently, children of God, that then we lose perspective of everybody else.
I
So,
think we do know.
I
and
mean,
I
it's in us.
I think it's there. And so I think right now, courage, and I think bring down the words Nazi, bring down these
Because
terrible
courage isn't
words.
hate.
No, courage is not hate.
Courage isn't fight all the time.
It's made
Courage
out of
is
love.
conviction.
Ooh, yeah.
But
I
it-
love-
and I don't mean fight. I mean like physically.
No, it's
yeah.
conviction. It's
And
to
it can be.
absolutely, but it doesn't. It can be.
I mean,
it can go
when
to
it's
that,
necessary,
but when
we'll talk
necessary,
about it, but
sure. But the reality is that's not your first, second, or third choice. Your first, second, or third choice was like Kirk would do. I'm not here to fight you. He looks like he was a pretty big fellow, tall
6'5".
anyway. Oh, I did not know. Yeah, I was looking at him with Trump, and I'm like, he's taller than Trump. Like
6'5".
like he's a power forward, or maybe a forward.
Nowadays.
Yeah, maybe a forward. I know, right? The game's gotten smaller for you.
A little bit.
So it's interesting that I'm not here to fight. I'm here to tell you how I feel, and you're going to tell me. I'm here to tell you what my beliefs are. My output is how I see these things, and these are the truths I hold dear. What do you got? Let's bounce this ball back and forth. And so here, let's bring down the hate speech. That Hitler doesn't even matter anymore. Like they literally took the power out of the word Hitler.
Yeah, because everybody's
Because
Hitler, right?
everybody's Hitler now.
Who is
Me
one- the
Too,
most
which we
one of the
talked
most
about
evil
last week in a very different way.
Yeah.
Me Too movement. Okay, I was violated. I was raped. Is lost its sting. Murder, as opposed to, so what Paige brought up this morning, murder as opposed to assassination, as opposed to political motivated killing, as opposed to, and it's like literally George Floyd is put into this category, and this Ukraine gal that was just stabbed like nobody's business was put into this category for the news cycles, and it's like, what okay.
And these tragedies are always used for somebody's gain, right?
Right.
They're always wanted to be. I was listening to somebody, and what he was saying was great, but he was using the word martyr, and I was like, okay, there's some truth probably to that.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is not grieving for Charlie Kirk. You're using him immediately after his death to propose some kind of idea or fight back or whatever you're doing.
Right.
You're using that as, and that's my son's not here, but that was Caden's biggest point of our topic last week is that we make tragedies into these political statements. And
what a good comment.
And we do. And to see, we're just so quick. We want to label it so that we can use it. It becomes intangible for us. And then we don't grieve over it. We've talked about this, how we move on from news cycles, the Trump assassination. We're not talking about it the next day.
Yeah, not at all. Right.
And I hope that Charlie Kirk's situation is not forgotten about tomorrow. I mean, we're in 9/11 today, and 9/11 is kind of on the back burner because this is a hot topic today. But how long is it going to be a hot topic? I don't know. In this news cycle, I don't know. And so I don't want to continue to just label this so that we can use it for that. We're a selfish society.
Yeah, let's talk to your wife about that. She really is bringing this up good. Like the caged animal, the fear factor, the lashing out, the safe places and octagons. Like we're all just, encapsulated.
Looking at who's going to attack me from which side of the cage.
You got to have 9 eyes. And so at the end of the day, let's kind of get back to that. It's going to take courage, and it's going to take, exactly what we would tell our kids in their high school experience or junior high school experience or their beyond. It's have courage, stick to your principles, hang out with good people, spend your time with them. But
be slow to be offended. Be humble.
Yeah.
There's
be
all
like
these.
Charlie Kirk was. I mean, he literally was hard to offend. Like, I don't know how he didn't get fiery during these debates. I mean, their debates, by very nature, is a fiery
Maybe he's
back and forth.
Maybe he's got a personality like you and I, where it's just there's not a lot of emotion to it, and so I don't know. Maybe
She brings up the stars. She made mention that he's a Libra. I feel like his movement gave a lot of people without a voice and a lot of lost individuals a place that didn't heretofore exist. That's why I started with you and I and our experience in all of our educational experience, which is a lot. We really didn't experience that side of things. Like my dad, had he gone to college, would have gone to a very protesty situation back in the Vietnam era.
And do you know what I like about Charlie Kirk? Let's just finish maybe on this thought is that because we talked about this a little bit, and I was just thinking about the thought occurred to me. You notice he's not doing this. There's a lot of activists just like him that are doing this on social media. But he went physically to see those people in their faces. And you and I talked about how I've watched him even, and he has his faults for sure, and I'm sure he was way aggressive with certain people and maybe days that he was more ornery than other days.
Sure.
But I watched him even in a clip where there was an obviously trans kind of out there, I don't know if it was a male or female, honestly, that stood up, and immediately his base started attacking. Like there was words saying, and so again, not fault on both sides, right? Automatic judgment, automatic hate words coming out. And he said, hey, please don't do that. Let's let this person speak first, and then we'll talk about the topics. But we don't need any of the hate stuff. And so but what I like about that thought is that, again, when you're seeing somebody in person, when you're actually, and maybe our phones have been the biggest evil that we've gotten that has caused this culture divide. And because we don't talk to our neighbors anymore, we don't see them personally. We'd rather send a text to the HOA than knock on their door and say, hey bro, your dog's barking at night. And maybe that doesn't work, or maybe it doesn't, but at least it gives, and he says, yeah, sorry, I'm deaf. And you find something, I don't know what it is, but you meet somebody in person and it's a different situation, right? And so Charlie, what I respected really a lot about him is that he's not doing this over social media. He's seeing these people face to face. And that's what's so sad about his death, was that he was purporting something that I think needs to happen in
That's
society
a great
and culture.
comment.
Is
That's
that
great.
We're seeing people, and he's seeing the people that are making these comments. And you even watch them, they're diplomatic more than they would be on social media, because they would have started, if it was social media, Charlie, you're an idiot. But instead they said, can I ask you a question?
Right.
Because you don't do that when you're in person.
Right.
There's cultural norms that we have that we understand, and inherently, like you said, we understand who our identity is when we have to show our face.
Yeah.
But
when
when
I'm
we
seeing
don't-
you, there's a automatic, what I'm texting you last night, there's a removal.
Yeah,
It's
just like you're not brutal comment, but you're not watching porn in front of your wife or your girlfriend. I mean, for the most part, maybe, I don't know. Or you're not doing drugs.
interesting idea.
And what I mean by that is there's things you do when you're by yourself and you can hide your identity and hide who you are that you wouldn't do in the norm of order in society
Right.
and culture. And so
True.
maybe get out of our freaking
My
houses. Maybe that's
ultimate
part of the
goal,
solution.
agree with that. Our first pod. Do you know your neighbor? Do
Yeah.
you know about that? So we're getting right back to that. And I love that. That's a really good observation. He went to the people.
Want to say something?
A quick.
He traveled with a security team, but there were never gun detectors, metal detectors. He did not have people going through. So to me,
That
that
wouldn't have
sets the
helped here.
example.
Yeah, he was
of
trying to
that
encourage that dialogue.
encouraged-
words,
yeah.
words, not guns.
Words, and I trust you,
Yeah.
and you can trust me, and
Yeah, that was
you
a
know,
whole young
that-
culture that
and-
he was trying to
Interesting.
so people are so
Yeah, backpacks and all that, and he's just,
yep,
hey, come,
complete
come.
trust in the student. So I don't know his security as far as what that looked like. He didn't have bulletproof glass in front of him. He was completely out in the open for a sniper
which sucks.
or
And
anything.
That's
And you know
where this
what?
is at.
Yeah, he took that. He knew that, and his wife and him had talked about that. They said, but that set that example, and that he didn't think he was below or above people to have he's somebody like security and traveling with.
And maybe
you know what
that's
I
why
mean?
that hits this hits harder, right?
Yeah, it
Because
hits hard.
What he was doing
It's-
was what
yeah.
we want people to do, is go out and have a dialogue with their neighbor and actually see them face to face and understand their context and their story. And I've even heard him compliment like a trans girl that's up there and say, okay, why do you feel like you were a girl since you were 3 years old, and he asked them the questions. And I actually heard him say, "Thank you for telling me your story. Here's where I don't agree with you, and I want you to understand where I think your identity, and I want you to be comfortable with who you were born with, and that's my desire for you. But I understand your story." And that he wouldn't have been able to do on social media.
Not on social
So-
media. And so I think
Sorry,
courage.
I got 2 seconds probably. Sorry,
I
I've
think
got
courage, and I think just knowing. Let's end on what you did. I mean, I think get out there, eyeball to eyeball, meet our neighbors, meet these people. That's what Turning Point was all about.
Yeah.
Was chapters in high schools, chapters in or whatever they call it on the college campuses.
Yep.
And I think it was a great movement, and it's fantastic. It encouraged.
And until this yesterday,
person.
I think that you would say that it was peacefully done and respectfully done, and
Yeah.
that's what's.
I think he's God sent, and I hope the best for his family. Yeah.
All right.
We gone.